Chapter 1. The Test. They smiled at me, invited me to their table, and quietly decided I was temporary. His family thought I was small, replaceable, someone to test before choosing the woman who fit their future. They did not know I had already heard the word placeholder spoken behind closed doors, or that the engagement they were planning would become the night everything unraveled. This is the story you are listening to tonight with me, where silence was not weakness, family power turned into karma, and the truth walked into the room when they least expected it. I learned early that people are at their most honest when they believe you cannot do anything for them. My grandmother used to say it like a prayer, soft and certain, the kind of sentence that settles into your bones and lives there. Watch how they treat you when they think you are small. That is where the truth leaks out. So when Ryan suggested I meet his family, I did not feel butterflies. I felt a quiet click inside my mind, like a latch closing. Ryan and I had been together for about 18 months, since November 2023, long enough to know the shape of his kindness and the edges of his avoidance. He was the kind of man who remembered your coffee order and your favorite movie, the kind who opened doors and sent good morning texts at the exact same time every day. He could make stability feel romantic. But whenever I asked about his family, he would skim the surface like a stone skipping water. "They are intense," he would say, smiling like it was a harmless quirk. "My mom can be a lot. My sister likes to run the room." "What does that mean?" I asked one night while we were folding laundry in my apartment, his socks in one pile, my black sweaters in another. "It means you will be fine," he said, and he kissed my forehead as if that settled it. I let it go because I wanted to be fair. People are allowed to have complicated families. I understood that better than most. By April 2025, Ryan started talking about the future in a way that carried weight. Not just vague plans, but concrete language. Summer trips, lease renewals, his place or mine. He began reaching for my hand in public more often, as if he was practicing for something. Then, one Saturday morning, he stood in my kitchen with my mug in his hands and said he wanted me to come to dinner at his parents' house the following weekend. He said it casually, but his eyes stayed on my face like he was bracing for impact. "It will mean a lot to my mom," he said. "To them. I want them to know you." I could have walked into that house as the version of myself that existed on paper, 37 years old, senior product lead at a software company in Seattle, the one who sat in boardrooms, who presented roadmaps to executives who never remembered my name but always remembered my numbers. I could have worn the blazer that made strangers call me ma'am with respect. I could have driven the newer car parked downstairs, the one I kept clean and quiet like a promise. Instead, I chose the other version, the one people underestimated at first glance. On the day of the dinner, I wore a simple cream sweater and jeans and flats that had seen too many sidewalks. I left my watch in the drawer and pulled my hair back into a low knot. I grabbed my oldest tote bag, the one with fraying handles, because it looked like it belonged to someone who lived paycheck to paycheck, not someone who had spent her last bonus paying off a mortgage early. I took my time in the mirror, not because I was nervous, but because I was calibrating. Ryan watched me from the couch, his hands clasped between his knees. "You look nice," he said, but his voice sounded thin. "Nice for who?" I asked. He frowned like he did not understand the question. "Nice, just nice." We drove north of the city, out past the polished storefronts, and into a neighborhood where the hedges looked professionally trained, where every driveway held a car that cost more than my first apartment. The houses sat back from the road like they had nothing to prove. Ryan kept both hands on the wheel, jaw tight, eyes forward. "It's just dinner," he said. I looked out the window. It's never just dinner. He gave a small laugh that did not reach his eyes. "You're going to be fine, Claire." I let the name sit there. Claire Mercer. My real name, but it sounded different in his mouth, like something he used when he wanted me to be easy. The Caldwell house was a white colonial with black shutters, the kind you see on holiday cards. The yard was immaculate. Even the air smelled expensive, like cut grass and stone warmed by sun. Ryan parked in the circle drive and exhaled hard before he got out. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded, and we walked up the steps together. The door opened before we knocked. Victoria Caldwell stood there like she had been waiting for us to appear on cue. She was in her early 60s, hair perfectly styled, a soft cashmere cardigan draped over her shoulders. She smiled, but it was the kind of smile that took your measurements. "Ryan," she said, and kissed his cheek, then turned her eyes to me. "Claire, finally." Her gaze moved from my shoes to my sweater to my tote bag, slow and thorough. Her expression did not change, but something in the room cooled. "Come in," she said, and stepped aside. Inside, the house smelled like lemon polish and something floral, not a candle, more like the air itself had been trained. There were framed photos on the wall of Ryan at different ages, baseball trophies, graduation caps, a picture of him in a tuxedo beside a woman I didn't recognize. I followed Victoria toward the dining room, and I kept my expression soft because the test had already begun. Chapter 2. The Humiliation. The dining room looked like it had been arranged for a magazine shoot. Polished wood, heavy linen napkins folded into neat shapes, candlelight that made everyone's skin look smoother than real life. A long table stretched beneath a chandelier, and every place setting had more forks than I knew what to do with. Victoria moved ahead of me with the ease of someone who had hosted 1,000 times. Ryan stayed close, but not close enough to feel like support. "Sit here," Victoria said, touching the back of a chair halfway down the table, not at the head, not at the far end, a careful middle that still felt like placement. Ryan took the seat beside me. Thomas sat at the head with his tablet propped near his plate like the meeting had never ended. Lauren slid into her chair across from us, smoothing her sleeves, eyes already scanning the room. There were 2 other guests I had not met yet, a man in a blazer with a realtor smile and a woman with pearl earrings who carried herself like she belonged to the same world. Their names came quickly and quietly: Daniel and Marcy, friends from their country club, the kind of friends you could call when you needed a favor and never say the word favor out loud. Victoria lifted her glass. "It is so nice to have everyone together," she said. "Ryan, we do not get enough of you lately." "Work has been busy," Ryan said. He glanced at me like he wanted me to add something. I kept my expression polite. Victoria's eyes returned to me. "Claire, tell us about your family." The question was spoken softly, almost warmly, but it landed with weight. The kind of question that sounded like interest yet demanded proof. I took a slow breath. "I grew up in Tacoma," I said. "My grandmother raised me." Victoria's face changed just slightly. Not pity, more like a calculated sympathy. "Oh, sweetheart," she said. "That must have been difficult." "It was stable," I said. "She was steady." Lauren's mouth twitched as if she had tasted something sour. "And your parents?" I paused just long enough to be honest without offering them a story they could weaponize. They were not around in a consistent way. Victoria reached for the serving dish as if she was doing something kind. "I see. Well, you turned out fine," she said, and the word fine held a ceiling over my head. She set a piece of chicken on my plate like a small reward. The important thing is to build something solid now. Structure matters. Marcy nodded like she had been taught the same language. "Family structure matters," she said, "especially for men like Ryan." Ryan's fork tapped against his plate. He laughed once, too quick. "Mom." Victoria raised her brows. "What? It is true. Ryan has always had responsibilities. He carries a lot." Thomas murmured, eyes still on his tablet. "He does." Lauren leaned forward. "What did you say you did again, Claire? Product?" "Product strategy," I said. Lauren nodded slowly. "So you help other people figure out what to build." "I lead teams and set direction," I said. I work with engineering, design, and leadership. Daniel, the club friend, smiled. Leadership, he repeated, like he was trying on the word. That sounds important. It is, I said, and I kept my voice even. Victoria tilted her head. And where did you go to school? State school, I said. Lauren's eyes flicked toward Marcy. Which one? A college in Washington, I said. Lauren smiled, the kind of smile that looked friendly from a distance. That is nice, practical. Ryan went to Stanford, of course. We have always valued the right environments. People thrive when they are surrounded by the right kind of ambition. Ryan's shoulders tightened. Lauren. Lauren lifted a hand. What? It is not an insult. It's a fact. Our family is careful. We do not take unnecessary risks. That is why our company has stayed strong. That is why we protect the Caldwell name. Victoria nodded. Exactly. The Caldwell name. It was said like a brand. I watched Ryan stare at his plate. He did not look at me. He did not look at his mother. He looked at nothing, like disappearing was a skill he had practiced for years. Victoria turned the conversation back to me with a smoothness that felt rehearsed. Claire, what does your grandmother do? Did she work? She owned a small business, I said. She built it over time. Victoria smiled wider. How wonderful! A hard-working woman. That is admirable. But, it's different when you have scale, when you have exposure, when you have a family reputation to uphold. Marcy laughed softly. Some people do not understand that kind of pressure. I picked up my water glass. I can understand pressure, I said. Lauren's gaze sharpened. Do you? Our world is not always forgiving. One mistake, one wrong association, and things can ripple. Wrong association. The words slid onto the table and stayed there. Ryan cleared his throat. Claire is great, he said. She's not a risk. Victoria looked at him with a gentle firmness. I know she's sweet, darling. I'm sure she is. But sweetness is not the same as fit. The room went quiet for a half second. Then Daniel cluckered like it was all harmless. Fit matters, he said. Partnerships are about fit. Partnerships, not love, not connection, partnerships. I felt heat rise in my chest, not explosive, controlled, like steam trapped beneath a lid. My grandmother used to call it the moment you learn the rules of a room. After that, you either play them or you leave. Victoria set her fork down. Speaking of fit, she said, there is someone I ran into at the charity luncheon last month. A lovely young woman, brilliant, polished, the kind of girl who understands what it means to support a man with a public life. Lauren's expression softened for the first time all evening. She's from the Roth family, she said. Savannah Roth. Her father sits on the board at Rainier Capital, and her mother is on 3 nonprofit committees with Mom. Marcy's eyes lit up. Oh, I know her. She's gorgeous. Victoria smiled at me as if she was including me in something. Savannah is just the sweetest and so accomplished. Harvard, then Northwestern for business. She speaks 3 languages. She's so grounded, it's rare. Ryan's shoulders stopped moving. Lauren continued, her tone conversational. She's also very invested in community work. She understands image. She knows how to be in a room without making it about herself. Daniel, the club friend, nodded. That matters more than people think. I waited. I watched Ryan. This was the moment where a decent man would say enough. This was the moment where he would draw a boundary. Ryan swallowed. He did not speak. Victoria leans back. Of course, Ryan, I am not saying anything. I just think it's important you're with someone who can truly step into your future, someone who fits. My pulse thudded in my ears. I could feel my face holding steady, but my hands were cold. Lauren looked at me, her voice almost kind. Claire, don't take this personally. This is just how families like ours think. We plan, we protect. Love is wonderful, but love is not the only thing that matters. I set my fork down carefully. It sounds like you have already planned a lot, I said. Victoria's smile did not change. Planning is wisdom. My mother taught me that. The world does not reward naive choices. Ryan finally looked at me then, a quick glance, like a silent request. Please, don't make this hard. The request was not to his mother. It was to me. I nodded once, small, polite, because I understood what was happening. I was not being introduced to his family. I was being evaluated by a committee, and Ryan was sitting next to me like a witness who would not testify. Lauren lifted her glass. "To the future," she said. Everyone murmured agreement. I lifted mine too. "To clarity," I said. No one reacted. They didn't even notice the difference. They were already filing me away in their minds, not as a person, but as a category, a type, the kind you dated before you chose the one who fit. The rest of dinner moved on. Talk of golf tournaments and foundation dinners and a new house a friend had bought near the water. I answered when spoken to, smiled when required, and watched Ryan shrink further into himself. Every time Victoria praised Savannah Roth, she did it like she was polishing a trophy. When dessert came, Victoria placed a slice of cake in front of me and said, "You must be grateful Ryan has given you a chance to be part of something bigger." Ryan's eyes stayed at his plate. I tasted sugar and butter and something bitter beneath it. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed calm. "I am grateful for clarity," I said again, quieter this time. Lauren's gaze flicked up. Victoria only smiled, as if she had just heard a compliment. I looked at Ryan and understood the real humiliation was not the questions or the comparisons. It was his silence. His silence. The way he let them define me while he sat close enough to touch and far enough to abandon. I kept my expressions soft until the plates were cleared and the conversation drifted to the living room, because I still had not seen everything I needed to see. I could feel anger waiting inside me, held in place by discipline, and I knew I would not let it out tonight. Not here. Not in their house. Not yet. Chapter 3. The Discovery. The next morning arrived quietly, like nothing had happened at all. Sunlight crept through the guest room curtains, and for a moment I wondered if the night before had been exaggerated by exhaustion. Then I heard Victoria's voice downstairs, crisp and controlled, and the feeling in my chest returned instantly. Ryan had already left the room. His side of the bed was cold, sheets smoothed over like evidence erased. I found him in the kitchen scrolling on his phone, coffee untouched. "Morning," he said, too quickly. "Morning," I replied. Victoria was at the counter, reviewing something on her tablet. She glanced up and smiled, all warmth restored. "I hope you slept well," she said. "I did," I said, because there was no point offering the truth. Ryan drove me back to my apartment later that day. The car was quiet, the kind of silence that pretends to be peaceful but hums with unspoken things. When we pulled up, he leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Last night was a lot," he said, "but they mean well." I nodded. "I know." He watched my face, waiting for something, maybe reassurance that I was still easy. I gave him a small smile and stepped out of the car. 2 days later, I was back at the Caldwell house. Victoria had asked if I wanted to join her for a charity planning meeting. She framed it as inclusion, as an opportunity to get to know how the family operated. Ryan encouraged me to go, saying it would help smooth things over. "I think it would mean a lot to her," he said, "to see you trying." Trying. The word stayed with me as I walked through the front door again. The meeting wrapped up faster than expected. Victoria excused herself to take a call, and Lauren followed her down the hallway toward the study. I stayed behind in the living room, flipping through a coffee table book I had no interest in. Their voices drifted back, low but clear enough. "You should not have said it like that at dinner," Lauren said. "I said exactly what needed to be said," Victoria replied. "He needed to hear it." He heard it. So did she. There was a pause. I turned a page I was not reading. "She was never meant to be permanent. We agreed on that," Victoria continued. Lauren sighed. "I know. I just do not want complications. We are already under enough pressure." Victoria's voice sharpened. "Which is exactly why Ryan cannot afford a distraction. This compliance review is not going away. The board is watching every move." Lauren lowered her voice further, but the hallway carried sounds like a tunnel. The internal audit flagged more than we expected. If this turns into a full investigation, optics will matter. Who Ryan is with will matter. I felt my pulse slow, my body doing something strange and precise. This was not shock. This was alignment. Victoria spoke again, firm and assured. That is why Savannah makes sense. Her family understands discretion. Her father knows how to navigate situations like this. Lauren exhaled. Savannah is solid. She brings credibility. And stability, Victoria said. Ryan needs stability right now, not confusion. Lauren hesitated. What about the girl, Claire? There it was. The word girl, not my name. She is a phase, Victoria said. A placeholder, something simple while he got through a difficult period. We will handle it cleanly. My hand tightened on the edge of the book. Placeholder. The word settled with a clarity that surprised me. It did not hurt the way betrayal is supposed to hurt. It clarified. Lauren spoke again. We just need to make sure there is no fallout. She seems perceptive. Victoria dismissed it. She does not understand the scope of what is happening. She thinks small. That is why this works. Their footsteps moved away, and I closed the book carefully, setting it back exactly where it had been. When Victoria returned, her smile was composed, her voice light. All done. Thank you for waiting. I smiled back. Of course. That evening, Ryan and I sat on the couch in my apartment, the city humming outside. He reached for my hand, thumb brushing my knuckles. You've been quiet, he said. I have been thinking, I said. He shifted slightly, like that explained everything. About last night. About us, I said. He shifted slightly. My family can be intense. They worry. It doesn't mean anything. I turned to face him. Does it mean anything to you? He hesitated, just long enough. They want the best for me, for us. I steadied his face. Are you under any pressure at work? He frowned. What kind of pressure? Board pressure, audits, reviews. His eyes flicked away before he could stop them. You're reading into things, he said quickly. Every company deals with that kind of stuff. My mom likes to dramatize. I nodded. And Savannah? His jaw tightened. What about her? You mentioned her name last night. Your mother seems to think she would be a good fit. Ryan laughed softly. She's just someone my mom knows. You know how she is, always matchmaking. Is she wrong? The silence stretched. He squeezed my hand, a gesture meant to ground me, to keep me from moving too far from where he wanted me. Claire, he said, you're overthinking this. They're just cautious. They don't want distractions right now. Am I a distraction? He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his expression confirmed what I already knew. You're important to me, he said carefully, but timing matters. We just need to get through this phase. The word phase echoed the one I had heard earlier, placeholder, phase, temporary language for a temporary person. I smiled, slow and controlled. I understand, I said. He relaxed visibly, relief softening his shoulders. He leaned in to kiss me, and I let him because this was not the moment, not yet. Later that night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The pieces arranged themselves without effort. Compliance review, internal audit, board pressure, a strategic match with a family that understood damage control. They were not villains in a movie. They were efficient. They were protecting a system. And Ryan was not confused. He was compliant. I could have left then, packed a bag, cut contact, let them write whatever ending suited them. But I understood something crucial in that quiet hour. If I walked away now, they would control the narrative. I would become the unstable woman who couldn't handle pressure, the unsuitable match who proved them right. I was not going to give them that. I decided to stay, not to beg, not to fight, to watch, to listen, to learn how their system worked from the inside. They believed I thought small. I let them believe it, because the moment you understand the rules of a game, you don't flip the table. You wait. Chapter 4. The Setup. Waiting did not mean doing nothing. It meant moving quietly, the way you do when you're in a house at night and you do not want the floorboards to tell on you. The week after I heard Victoria call me a placeholder, I went back to my life like nothing had shifted. I went to the office, I ran meetings, I sat in conference rooms with glass walls and people who spoke in polished sentences about roadmaps and revenue. I smiled at Ryan's texts and answered his calls because the goal was not to start a fight. The goal was to see the full shape of the trap before I stepped out of it. My company was called Northwind Labs, a mid-sized software firm based in Seattle that built tools for enterprise operations. I had been there long enough to know how quickly a clean brand could crack when pressure hit, and how much executives cared about optics when money was involved. That was why the words compliance review and internal audit had caught my attention like a flare. I started with what I could verify legally. I did not hack anything, I did not steal, I did not fabricate. I watched for patterns and I asked questions in places where questions were normal. On a Tuesday afternoon, I took a long lunch and drove to a cafe in Bellevue where the lighting was soft and the seats were spaced far enough apart for private conversations. I met a man named Marcus Lane, a compliance consultant in his mid-50s, someone I had been introduced to years earlier through a mutual contact in the industry. He was not a friend. He was the kind of professional you called when you needed the truth explained without emotion. He arrived on time, carrying a leather notebook, salt and pepper hair, a calm face that looked like it had watched many companies unravel. We ordered coffee. He did not make small talk. "You said it was urgent," he said. "I need context, not gossip, context." His eyes stayed on mine. "About what?" I took a breath. "A company called Caldwell Holdings, my boyfriend's family." Marcus's expression did not change, but his gaze sharpened slightly. That was enough. "You are careful," he said. "I have to be," I replied. I heard the words compliance review, internal audit, board pressure. I need to know what that actually means in real life. Marcus leaned back, fingers resting on the edge of his cup. "It can mean a lot of things," he said. "Sometimes it is routine, sometimes it is a warning. What did you hear exactly?" I told him what I had heard, keeping it clean, sticking to the facts, not adding my feelings. When I finished, he stared at the foam in his coffee for a moment, then looked up. "If they are using those terms casually at home, it is probably not routine," he said. "People who are calm do not talk like that. People under investigation talk like that." I swallowed. Under investigation by who? Internal counsel, external auditors, maybe regulators depending on the industry, he said. "It starts quietly, a review, a risk committee, a few emails. Then it becomes an audit. Then it becomes damage control." "That sounds like what they're doing," I said. Marcus nodded once. "Caldwell," he repeated. "I have heard the name, not in a good way." I kept my face neutral. "What do you mean?" He paused, measuring what he should say. "A few years ago, they were connected to a vendor dispute. Nothing public. It was settled before it reached court, but the pattern was familiar. Pressure, denial, then a quick fix behind closed doors." My stomach tightened. "So they know how to bury things?" "They know how to delay," he corrected. "Burying is harder now." I looked down at my hands, then back up. "I am not asking you to do anything illegal," I said. "I'm asking for the truth so I can protect myself." Marcus's eyes softened slightly. "Protect yourself from what?" "From being written into their story as the problem," I thought, but I did not say it. I said something simpler. "From being collateral." He nodded. "Then you need to document everything you experience," he said. "Not recordings without consent, not hacked emails, just dates, statements, and public information. You would be amazed how useful a clean timeline is." "A timeline," I repeated. "A timeline is the difference between a feeling and a fact." I left the cafe with my chest steady and my mind focused. I did not feel vindicated. I felt armed with clarity. That same week, my professional life accelerated, Northwind Labs had selected me to lead a major rollout for a new enterprise product, and I was scheduled to speak at an industry conference in early May 2025 in downtown Seattle. It was not glamorous, but it was visible. It meant my name would be on a program. It meant people in my field would see me on stage and recognize me as someone who belonged in rooms bigger than the Caldwell dining table. I did not tell Ryan, not because I was hiding it as a trick, but because I wanted to see how long it took his world to notice the truth without my help. It took less than 2 weeks. One evening, Ryan came over with takeout and a tight smile. He kissed me like he was trying to prove something, then sat down on my couch without relaxing. "My mom asked about you today," he said. I opened the container of food and kept my tone light. "What did she ask?" He hesitated. "She asked if you were going to be in the paper." I looked up. "In the paper?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Lauren saw something, a conference listing. She has people who track industry stuff. She called my mom." "So they Googled me," I said. Ryan's eyes flicked away. "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that," I said, still calm. He exhaled. "They just want to know who you are." "They wanted to know who I was at dinner, too," I replied. They didn't like the answer. Ryan's jaw tightened. "Can we not do this?" I set my fork down gently. "We can do whatever you want," I said. "That's what we've been doing." He stared at me, and for a moment I saw panic under his composure. Not fear of losing me, fear of losing control of the situation. A few days later, Victoria invited us to brunch at a country club. This time there were more people, more eyes, more smiles. The setting was louder, but the message was the same. I watched Victoria introduce me as Ryan's friend, not his girlfriend, as if she was leaving space to revise the label later. Lauren cornered Ryan near the bar, voice low, posture rigid. I drifted close enough to catch fragments. "We need stability," Lauren said. "We need a clean front." Ryan's voice was muffled. "I'm handling it." Lauren's tone sharpened. "Then handle it faster." Victoria approached me with a bright smile that did not reach her eyes. "Claire, have you ever thought about what you want long term?" I met her gaze. "I think about it often." She nodded as if that was the correct answer. "Good," she said. "Ryan is at a point where the right decisions matter. The timing matters. You understand that, don't you?" I smiled. "I understand timing." That night, Ryan arrived at my apartment with flowers. Too many flowers, like a performance. He paced in my living room, hands opening and closing, eyes avoiding mine. "I've been thinking," he said. I sat on the couch, posture relaxed. "So have I." He stopped in front of me and took a breath that sounded rehearsed. "I want to take the next step. I want to make this official. I want us to be solid." "Solid," I repeated. "Yes, stable, committed. It will help everything settle." There it was. Not love, not desire, settlement, optics. Ryan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. His hands shook just slightly, not from emotion, from pressure. He opened it. The ring caught the light. It was beautiful in the way expensive things are designed to be beautiful. "Claire," he said, voice tight, "will you marry me?" My heart did not leap. My stomach did not flip. What I felt was an eerie calm, like stepping onto a stage you've already studied from every angle. I looked at the ring, then at him. "Is this what you want?" I asked quietly. He blinked. "Of course it is." "Or is this what your mother wants?" His face tightened. "Can we not do that right now?" I held his gaze until he looked away. Then I smiled, soft and controlled. "Yes," I said. Ryan's shoulders sagged with relief so deep that it almost made me angry. He slid the ring onto my finger as if he was securing a deal, not promising a life. He kissed me and I let him, because the answer had not been a surrender, it had been a decision. As Ryan fell asleep later, I sat in the dark and stared at the ring on my hand. I thought about Marcus Lane's words, about timelines and facts, about pressure and optics.
I thought about Victoria's careful placement of chairs, about Lauren's sharp smile, about Savannah Roth's lame polished like a trophy. They were building a stage because they needed the world to believe everything was fine. I would not stop them. I would let them build it.
Chapter 5: The Reckoning. The night of the engagement arrived wrapped in soft music and polished smiles, the kind of evening designed to reassure anyone watching that everything was under control. The venue sat above the river on the edge of downtown Portland, all glass and warm light. The city reflected back at itself. Guests moved easily through the space, men in tailored jackets, women in dresses chosen carefully to say success without saying need. I stepped inside with Evan at my side, my hand resting lightly in his, the ring catching just enough light to be noticed without demanding attention. I had chosen my dress for neutrality, clean lines, muted color, nothing that begged for approval. People from my industry noticed me anyway. A nod here, a brief smile there. Recognition traveled quietly, faster than gossip ever did. Evan leaned close. "You look beautiful," he said. I smiled. "Thank you." His mother, Eleanor Hartman, stood near the center of the room, greeting guests like a practiced conductor. Her posture was perfect, her voice measured, her eyes constantly scanning. When she saw us, she moved toward us immediately. "There you are," she said, kissing Evan's cheek, then turning to me. "So glad you could make it." As if there had ever been a doubt. Her daughter, Allison Hartman, joined us moments later, phone already in hand, eyes flicking between guests and notifications. She gave me a brief smile, one that barely lingered. "Everything is set," she said to Eleanor. "The board members are here. The Collins group arrived early." Eleanor nodded. "Good." The word landed with more weight than the music playing softly overhead. I watched people greet Evan with firm handshakes and quiet congratulations. This was not a celebration of love. This was a performance of stability. When the host tapped the microphone, the room settled. A toast was announced. A few words about family, about partnership, about the future. Then Eleanor looked toward me. "Claire," she said, "would you like to say something?" It was framed as generosity. It was actually a test. I stepped forward, the room falling into attentive silence. Evan stood just behind me, close enough to feel, not close enough to anchor me. I thanked everyone for being there. I spoke about connection, about the way trust is built slowly through consistency and honesty. I talked about how relationships, personal and professional, are strongest when they are rooted in truth rather than appearance. Faces stayed pleasant, nods followed. Then I shifted. I said that I had learned through my work and my life that short-term decisions made to protect an image often create long-term consequences. That when people confuse stability with control, they miss the warning signs that matter most. That systems, like relationships, respond to pressure whether we acknowledge it or not. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse anyone. I simply laid the facts gently on the table, one by one. I spoke about how public optics can never replace internal integrity, how oversight exists for a reason, how reviews and audits are not punishments, but signals that something needs to be addressed. A few heads turned, a few brows furrowed. I felt the room shift before Eleanor did. Then Daniel Foster stepped forward from the crowd. He had been standing near the back, unremarkable by design. He introduced himself calmly, as a compliance advisor with experience in corporate governance. He spoke briefly about the importance of transparency in times of transition. Questions followed, quiet ones, careful ones, the kind that did not accuse but did not disappear either. Eleanor tried to redirect the conversation. She smiled, she laughed, she reminded everyone that this was a celebration, but the narrative no longer belonged to her. I turned to Evan Men, removed my hand from his, and slipped the ring off my finger. The metal felt heavier than it should have. I said that I could not move forward with a future built on omissions and convenience, that I respected systems that corrected themselves, that I did not respect silence when truth was required. There was no argument, no shouting, just a pause that stretched long enough to be understood. I placed the ring on the table beside us and stepped back. The evening continued, technically. People stayed, drinks were poured, conversations resumed in quieter clusters, but the energy had changed. The performance had cracks. In the weeks that followed, consequences unfolded the way they always do when pressure meets reality. An internal audit expanded, partnerships paused, meetings were postponed, invitations slowed. Evan called. Once, twice, then more. His messages shifted from confusion to frustration to something that sounded like regret. I did not respond. I focused on my work. I took the stage at the conference I had prepared for months earlier. I spoke to rooms filled with people who asked real questions and listened to real answers. My name moved through spaces that did not require me to be small to be accepted. I heard through others that Eleanor was furious, that Allison was overwhelmed, that the family was working to contain the damage. Containment is not resolution. It is delay. What surprised me most was not the fallout. It was the quiet that followed, the absence of tension in my body, the way my mornings felt lighter, the way my reflection looked steadier. I had not won anything. I had simply stepped out of a story that was never written for me to finish. If you have ever found yourself being evaluated instead of loved, categorized instead of known, I hope this reminds you that clarity is not cruelty. It is freedom. If this story resonated with you, stay with the channel. Share your thoughts. Someone listening might need to hear that walking away with dignity is sometimes the most powerful choice you can make.